What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through the best forwards to get in those FPL drafts. So we started off this new series of the best of. Yesterday was the defenders, today's going to be the forwards, tomorrow the midfielders, and then finally the goalkeepers. So as mentioned yesterday, we've gone over the underpriced options, the overpriced options, the best value forwards even. Now it's time to actually combine those and go over the stats in a little bit more in depth. So how this video is going to be structured is I'll first be going over the team data, what attacks are generally better than the average, and then I'll be taking a deep dive into the individual stats of each player. So hopefully super insightful, and what I generally hope for this video series is this is kind of a one-stop shop for you guys on each position. After this video, you guys don't have to watch any other forward videos because I'll be going through everything here. But if you guys have any questions, you can comment them down below on my Discord server, link in the description. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. Use Fantasy Football Fix to help win your mini leagues. Their new Elite XI tool helps you track the world's best managers live, giving you access to the minds of some of the best managers in the world with over 80 top 10k finishes. You'll get game week by game week analysis of their teams, as well as instant team change push notifications from their app available on iOS as well as Android. Get started now for free using the link in the description and get free access to the game week 1 deadline. So going on to the team stats portion of this video, what I'll be going over is the last year stats of each team. I'll be ranking the top 6 sides in terms of XG and then discussing which options I like from each team. So let's bring those teams up on screen and I'll be ranking them from Fantasy Football Fix. This is going to be their XG metrics, so including penalties as well as the actual goals scored. So you guys can see that Man City are number 1, kind of an expectation there, as well as Liverpool. Brighton had a particularly good season from an attacking point of view. We then have Arsenal, Newcastle, and then finally United. So generally, out of these top 6 sides, I think a lot of us are making our teams purely from these teams. I mean, a Haaland's going to be in your team, maybe a Phil Foden. Only exception is maybe Liverpool. I've seen Darwin Núñez pop in a few drafts recently. But otherwise, Brighton, we've got a double up or a triple up. Arsenal, definitely a double up in attack. Newcastle, probably avoiding them at the start of the season. And then probably Bruno and Rashford as well. So you guys know it's going to be a high scoring FPL season when out of the top 6 sides from an attacking point of view last season, we can basically fill our entire attacking department with only these teams. Now as mentioned, this is going to be ranked according to XG, so if you guys want to go over XG non-penalty, Fix also has that as a metric, but I decided to include it as I wanted to compare to actual goals. So the first thing you're probably noticing is the massive overperformance of Man City from their XG of 77. They scored 94 goals. The difference between that is simply outstanding, and I can't really explain what's happening there. Maybe a lot of long shots are taking place, or maybe Man City are just scoring kind of low XG chances, but when I saw that difference, I was quite amazed. Then moving on to Liverpool, their kind of average is a lot closer, 75.7, regressing to 75. I mean, that's basically bang on the money. Same with Brighton, 74 to 72. Then we have another overperformance from Arsenal, basically 70 goals, but they scored 88. Then the only team that's actually underperforming their XG was Manchester United with 66, but only scoring 58. Now, if you guys have watched my previous kind of midfielder review videos, you'll know that Bruno Fernandes had a very good season last season in terms of his stats. Unfortunately, that didn't always result in FPL points. You guys can see this on screen right now. Manchester United were expected to score 66 chances. That's either Bruno's XG or Bruno's XA. And that came down to them not finishing their dinner. So let's just say they did score those 8 more goals. Maybe Bruno was involved in all of them. That would have been quite a few more FPL points. So something to take into account if you guys are hedging on that United attack. I am personally. I've got Bruno and Rashford in my latest draft, and I'm expecting them to improve from the stats this season. Now as mentioned, from the team's point of view, not much insight can be gauged here because a lot of us own these teams already. The only team I would probably say is Liverpool is that they're always going to score goals at the end of the day. So if we can predict which forward is going to get a lot of minutes, they could be absolute FPL gold. But the current moment, my consensus is that we got to wait and see to see how Liverpool are kind of setting up. I think whatever option you get, you got to have to be patient with them because if they don't start the one game, they'll start the next. So between a Jota, a Luis Diaz, a Darwin Núñez, and a Gakpo, you're always going to have rotation amongst that kind of front four. Unless you want to pay the more expensive price for Mo Salah because he's the most nailed. Now this is kind of a fun experiment here. I've gone over their XG of last year as well as their actual goals scored of last year, just so that you guys can do kind of a comparison from season to season. What you want to see here is consistency. So for example, Man City scoring 99 goals last season, 94, it's only a 5-goal difference. But at least the XG metric was a lot higher last season. Then with Liverpool, they actually scored 94 goals versus 75, so from an attacking point of view, last season wasn't that great, and I do expect them to actually get to the middle ground between them. Then in terms of teams like Brighton and also Newcastle, much better attacking seasons, but you guys know this, they had a stellar season last season, so it's all going to depend if they can keep that up. In terms of Arsenal, also had a very good season finishing second, and United actually kind of bang on the money, however their XG did improve last year. But you guys can't really go wrong with picking any of these sides as long as the fixtures look strong. Combining the attacking stats with great fixtures is a recipe for FPL points. Let me know in the comments down below, what team do you think is going to score the top goals? Probably going to be Man City, so let's go for a top 3. I'd probably say Man City, Arsenal, and then Liverpool. So comment your top 3 down below of who you think is going to score the most Premier League goals. So now that we have gone over the team stats, let's now focus on the individual stats. I'm going to be comparing the players over a few kind of metrics. Now the first metric I want to go over is going to be similar to kind of the defenders. I'm going to be going over which forwards played the majority of games and the majority of minutes. So on screen right now, you guys are going to see two kind of axes. The x-axis or the bottom axis is going to be games played. In a Premier League season, there's going to be 38 games at a maximum, and you'll see that Visa and Kane both played 38 games. But in terms of minutes per game, that was basically the amount of minutes that they have per appearance. This includes if they started, if they were subbed on. So if they were subbed on quite a bit, that's obviously going to reduce their minutes per game. Now there's a very wide range here. Unlike the kind of defenders, we're going from 90 minutes with Ivan Toney and Harry Kane to about 30 minutes with Undov and Mateta. The reason you kind of seeing this is I don't have to filter out as many forwards as I did with the defenders, because at the end of the day, there's not that many forwards in the game, so we can kind of get a nice graph still. So the big insight I kind of gauged was the likes of Visa here. You might be thinking that he played 38 games, he's almost nailed, but just remember that he has about 45 minutes of playtime, so was used as a sub on quite a lot. With Ivan Toney out, I'm expecting him to play up front unless they do sign a new striker, so keep your guys' eyes on that one. But you guys are probably focusing on the top right hand side, and I would understand that you want to go for a forward that plays the majority of minutes, because theoretically that means more kind of chances. So you guys can't go wrong with the Harry Kane. Basically played every single minute, if not every minute, in the Premier League last season, but there is kind of a transfer concern of him to Bayern. Now when I am recording this video, Spurs have rejected the latest Bayern bid, and to be honest, I think that he's going to stay at Spurs next season. Now there's another player that I'm looking at, and it's going to be Ollie Watkins. He comes in with a lot of minutes played, very nailed in that Aston Villa lineup, and although the fixtures aren't that great at the start of the season, he's definitely on my watch list. We also see that Ivan Toney and Dom Solanke have a very good kind of minutes played. You'd expect that both kind of nailed strikers, nailed talisman at their clubs, but Ivan Toney's going to miss the majority of the season after he was suspended. So will Visa get more minutes, hopefully at that forward position? That's going to rise his minutes per game. I'm definitely keeping my eye on the Brentford striker. You guys can also see that Erling Haaland has played the majority of minutes, about 80 minutes is very respectable, but you guys have him in your team already. So let's move on to the left hand side a bit. Gabriel Jesus played less games than Erling Haaland, but a similar kind of minutes per game, so I wouldn't really be worried about rotation as people have been saying. So I'm just going to explain this again, that kind of means that Gabriel Jesus, when he does have an appearance, he has an average of 80 minutes per game, and I'll take that at the end of the day, because that's quite high. So was Gabriel Jesus rotated as much as we thought? Obviously Trossard only joined kind of late into the season, so it'll be interesting to see the effect that he has on Jesus' minutes. If you look around that 60-minute mark, I've got Callum Wilson there, and you'll see that Callum Wilson's stats from an attacking point of view are super high. It's a little bit worrying here that his kind of minutes per game was only 60, but that's a chance you guys take with Isaac and him rotating. You guys can see Isaac and Gakpo as well as Calvert-Lewin around the 70-minute mark, so if you guys are looking for kind of a Liverpool striker, Gakpo might be the one to go for. Just below Wilson there is kind of Darwin Núñez around the 60-minute mark, so Gakpo definitely more kind of nailed for minutes than Darwin Núñez, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad option. Now around the 50-minute mark, we do have players like a Ferguson, a Weghorst, a Martial, also Julian Alvarez. You would expect that as a lot of these options are subbed on kind of late into the fixture, and then when they do start, they probably get subbed off from the 60-minute mark. The one I want to talk about though is going to be Alvarez from Man City. News has kind of just dropped that the Premier League are looking to increase the playing time. They're going to add stoppage time for any stoppages throughout the game, therefore increasing the actual playing time. So if that does happen, you could see maybe on the 60-minute mark, 70-minute mark, Julian Alvarez coming off the bench and actually getting a decent amount of minutes because of that stoppage time added. So just keep that in mind as you guys are kind of progressing through the preseason, as that might actually have quite a big impact on FPL. I'm going to move on, but you guys can pause the screen right now if you want to, but let's get on to more attacking stats. So going on to the attacking stats, and I've kind of listed this as price versus big chances per 90 minutes. I do apologize for the bottom left hand side being quite stacked, but I generally think that you guys won't be probably focusing there. So what this graph is going to be is big chances per 90 minutes. Why I'm going over big chances? Well, goals are scored from big chances usually, so therefore the more big chances your striker gets, the better. Obviously you hope that they do convert those big chances. That goes on to their shot accuracy and goal conversion, but that's a different debate. So obviously with Erling Haaland, if you guys don't have Erling Haaland, don't really know what to tell you guys. You guys need him in your FPL team. I know that you might not get the most points from him, but you need him in your squad because his stats are simply insane. So you guys can see that he averages about a 0.65 big chance per game, and you guys know that he usually scores those. Then in terms of Harry Kane, quite a dip from that kind of 14.0 million mark. He gets about 0.4, same as about an Ivan Toney or an Ollie Watkins. So those strikers might be better at their cheaper price. So that's kind of the bracket I want to focus around, is that almost around that 8 million mark. It's Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, Callum Wilson, Darwin Núñez, Mitrovic, and also Jesus. Now in terms of Mitrovic, he's obviously might be leaving Fulham, so wouldn't focus on him too much. But Darwin Núñez is an interesting option because when he does play, he gets you great attacking stats. Now taking up the number 9 jersey at Liverpool, so could be a great option at his price point. And personally, if I was to take a punt on a Liverpool asset, I probably would go for him. You guys can see compared to Gakpo, offers more attacking threat, as he usually is quite more central. So as mentioned, Darwin Núñez is probably the punt I would look at because his attacking stats are simply outstanding. But the 8 million mark is slightly more popular amongst FPL managers. With Ivan Toney out, that's kind of a big mark that we can't bring in, but Ollie Watkins, Callum Wilson, and Gabriel Jesus are where that value really lies. So you guys know my opinion on Ollie Watkins, very underrated, and other fixtures aren't that great, but offers great attacking stats, and his conversion rate has been getting better. Callum Wilson, when he does start, he gets you FPL points, but there's a big question mark about is he going to play at striker. Rotates with Isaac quite a lot, and when he does start, usually gets subbed off, but he's probably bagged a goal or two by then. And then finally, the most popular probably option in this bracket besides Erling Haaland, it's Gabriel Jesus, whose attacking stats are still pretty decent. And that's why in my opinion, I think it's perfectly fine starting with Jesus, then you can move to Ollie Watkins or Callum Wilson late in the line when the fixtures do improve slightly. But once again, this was kind of big chances per 90 minutes, so I see that most of the popular options do have good stats. Now the next graph we're going to go over is going to be XG involvement also per 90 minutes. What this is a combination of is XG and XA, so expected goals and expected assists. Basically what's the attacking threat like. So on a per 90 metric, you guys can see that Erling Haaland once again producing the goods here, over 1.0 XG involvement per game. So once again, you guys have to have him in your team. But once including the XG and the XI, you guys can see that Callum Wilson and Darwin Núñez are cut above the rest at their price points, and these could be absolute FPL gold if they play. Undav from Brighton is a surprising pick here, but when he does play, he gets you points, but unfortunately, he's not a main starter, doesn't even get subbed on that much. Once you go down that kind of bracket to 0.8, you can see that Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus get similar kind of metrics, which might be understandable because Nketiah plays for Jesus and they sub for each other. So if you had to keep an average of kind of the Arsenal strikers, it's 0.8 XG involvement per game, which shows why Jesus is such a great option. We see the Brighton strikers at about 0.6 Ferguson and also Welbeck, but they'll rotate probably quite frequently. We've got Isaac, Gakpo, and Watkins around that 0.6 mark as well. And then Harry Kane on the far right hand side, who keeps up with Ivan Toney. So now looking at this kind of XG involvement, we see that Callum Wilson and Darwin Núñez are even better options if you guys want to take a punt, whereas Jesus still keeps up the fact that he's a great option even with his high ownership. Now the next stat we're going to go over is going to be expected FPL points per 90 minutes. Now this stat comes from Fantasy Football Fix. It's a combination tool of a various amount of stats, XG, XA, minutes played, all that good stuff. And that's why I wanted to showcase it in this video because it gives you a nice little variation. So if you were to take kind of expected FPL points, including bonus points as well, you can see that Erling Haaland has a very good metric, but he's not the best kind of metric. That's Undav, but as mentioned, he hasn't played a lot of minutes. So once again shows how Brighton are quite an attacking side, and apparently when Undav plays, he gets you FPL points, but he's not super reliable. So once again showing that Erling Haaland has a ridiculous kind of 7.8 expected FPL points per game, which is simply mental and the reason why he is the perma captain. But Callum Wilson once again showing why he's a great asset when he does play, gets you those points, and he gets around 7 per game. We then have Nketiah, which is quite interesting, but as mentioned, he's subbed on quite late into the fixture, maybe defenses are quite tired, and he takes advantage of that, which could be a strength with this added stoppage time. We then have Darwin Núñez, my kind of favorite punt from a Liverpool point of view. When he plays, he gets you points, he just has to start. Then once again, Jesus showing why he's a great asset at his price point, almost keeping up with Harry Kane. The one I also want to take note of is going to be Visa. We saw that he didn't have the most kind of minutes per game, but he did have a lot of appearances. So without Ivan Toney, could he actually be a good asset? Because based on last season, he was still getting you FPL points. Same could be said about Alvarez, similar situation with Nketiah. Could the stoppage time actually make them viable options in that front line? The one thing I also want to note though with Ollie Watkins is you might be looking at this thinking it's quite low, but just remember he's played the maximum amount of minutes, and therefore over all those minutes, scores usually get averaged out. Compare that for example for an Nketiah who's getting subbed on late into the fixture, you probably trust Ollie Watkins' metric more. But the final graph I want to go over is going to be a combination of both these two stats. So on the x-axis, we have expected FPL points. On the y-axis, is going to be the XG involvement per 90 minutes. Just to give you guys a nice comparison. Now what you guys kind of expect here is almost a diagonal relationship. As the XG involvement increases, so should the FPL points, just because that's kind of the only scoring metric for strikers. So that's kind of what we see as well. We do have some exceptions here. We have a Darwin Núñez who kind of increases his XG involvement, but doesn't increase his FPL points. But he's almost a little bit of an anomaly. Erling Haaland once again showing why he's such an elite FPL asset, as well as Undov if he actually plays. Now to this consensus, I would probably say that Erling Haaland's a mainstay in your team. I've already mentioned that. I think that Jesus is keeping up the stats. His attacking stats look pretty strong. Expected FPL points also look decent. But if you guys do want to take a punt, I would do it on Darwin Núñez or Callum Wilson. Ollie Watkins is a great example here of kind of reliable stats, not the most explosive option in the world, but it'll get you FPL points. But that's why I think the fixtures have to be good if I was to go for him. But the big talking point, Ivan Toney, what's going to happen with his replacement? If it's going to be Visa, can Visa keep up with these stats? Because if he does, he could be absolute gold. But comment down below, who's your two favorite strikers at the moment? If you're going for a front three, what's your front three looking like? And are you guys taking any punts? Now the next talking point I want to go over is going to be the Chelsea forwards. You wouldn't have seen any kind of Chelsea forwards on this list. And that's because they didn't play in the Premier League last season. So the two strikers at the moment are going to be Nkunku, who comes in at 7.5 million, and then Jackson, who comes in at 7.0. So both these two assets, new signings for Chelsea or coming back to Chelsea as their parent club, and I think they're going to have great FPL seasons. The reason that both of them are currently on the watch list is throughout preseason, Nkunku has either started at striker or at the number 10, and then Jackson comes on and plays the striker. So my kind of thinking, if I was to break down these two assets, is I would say that Jackson is the better punt to go for. The striker is always the better option, is more central to goal, should be involved in more chances, but Nkunku is better for game time. So what I can see kind of happening here is Nkunku starts the game. Maybe if Jackson's playing, he'll play the number 10. Jackson gets subbed off, and Nkunku goes up front. But overall, Nkunku will get more minutes. Now yes, he is 0.5 more expensive, but with the prices of the season, you guys can afford either of them, in my opinion. So who would I look at? As I mentioned, I think I would probably go with Nkunku because of the game time, but I think in terms of Jackson, he might get more FPL points over the per 90 stats, but it's just a question of how many minutes he's actually going to play. Don't worry though, throughout preseason we've got a kind of a week remaining. Hopefully we get some more indication from Pochettino, because both these two could be absolute steals. I think because Chelsea had such a bad season last season, a lot of their options are underpriced, so both these two options could be absolute value for money. But comment down below, are both these assets or either of them in your current draft? I know Nkunku was in my latest draft, but I've reverted back to Gabriel Jesus. But after the recent Chelsea preseason games, I am actually looking at both of them. Now the last talking point I want to go over, as I did with the kind of defenders, is going over which bench forwards should you guys be getting. These will all be 4.5 million. The first one's going to be Mubama from West Ham. Now I know West Ham have kind of a lot of strikers at the moment, but Skamaka is rumoured to be leaving the club, and therefore Mubama could be a nice entry at 4.5. He's my current 4.5 that I think might get the most minutes throughout kind of the season. But just remember, these 4.5s probably will be third on your bench most game weeks. The next option is to be Archer, also comes in at 4.5, the replacement for Ollie Watkins. Don't really think Ollie Watkins will be out for many minutes, but if he does, Archer might play. And the final option is a punt. It's Balogun from Arsenal. Now the only reason I've selected him is that if he does move to another Premier League club, as then he'll get more minutes. But that's a big if, so maybe just monitor the transfer news, but if he does leave Arsenal, could be a viable asset, as I'm pretty sure Ted will want him to play at his loan club. But on my current list, I've got Surridge at 4.5 because he's price locked, left to the MLS, so he can't drop in price. And that's the big thing here, is that you don't want your kind of bench options, your 4.0 defenders, your 4.5 forwards to drop in price. So if you guys do go for a more high ownership one, just make sure that they're going to play. But this is basically going to wrap up the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. You got the midfielders tomorrow and the goalkeepers the next day, so make sure those notifications are turned on. But I'm going to sign off. This has been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.